fractured spine, and no care for my husband. Was I wrong for calling him an AH? I had a terrible accident today, and I'm not sure if I overreacted or if I'm right to be upset. This morning, I slipped on some stairs outside while carrying groceries. I ended up falling pretty hard, and it caused a serious injury to my spine. I was in so much pain I could barely move. Thankfully, my husband was there and immediately took me to the emergency room. He took me and our kids, and we spent hours in the ER. It was a long, painful ordeal, and I felt completely helpless. After waiting for what felt like forever, I finally got the diagnosis, a sacrum fracture. It was a huge relief to know what was causing the pain, but I was in agony and physically drained. It was around 8 p.m. when my mother-in-law came to pick me up from the hospital, and she brought me home. When we got home, mother-in-law gave my husband some instructions. Give me a heat pack and go to the pharmacy to pick up my pain medication. At that point, I was exhausted and the pain was unbearable. I decided to go lie down with my son for a little while as he was getting ready for bed. I needed some quiet, and I wanted to be with him to comfort him, especially after such a traumatic experience. But when I came back downstairs at around 9:30 p.m., my husband was in the kitchen eating, and it hit me. I hadn't eaten since midday, and I was still in pain. I hadn't been able to move around much, and I felt abandoned. I asked him if he had gotten the heat pack ready like mother-in-law had asked. He said no. I asked if he had picked up my painkillers from the pharmacy. Again, he said no. I was getting frustrated, but I didn't want to make a scene, so I tried to stay calm. I then asked if he could get me something to eat, since I was still too uncomfortable to get up and prepare food myself. He did get me something to eat after that, but I was still upset. I had already been in pain for hours and hadn't eaten, and I had been waiting for the pain relief that I desperately needed. An hour later, I asked him again if he had gotten the painkillers, and he replied, "No, of course." I was fed up by that point. He then asked me to explain the painkillers to him. I was confused and asked what he meant by that, and he said, "I need to know everything about them." That was the moment I completely lost it. I just felt like I was talking to a brick wall. I told him that I was hurt by the fact that he hadn't shown me any care or compassion since I got home. And then, I called him an asshole. He didn't take that well. He said that when he asked about the painkillers, it felt like he was talking to a wall and that I needed to communicate better. I told him that his questions were ridiculous and that I shouldn't have to do everything myself just to get basic kindness and care from my husband, especially when I had just come home from the hospital with a fractured spine. He got defensive and said that I make it hard for him to be kind when I call him names. So, AITA for calling my husband an asshole? Was I expecting too much from him? Is it unreasonable to expect him to be proactive in getting the things his own mother told him to do, like getting the heat pack and picking up my prescription painkillers without me needing to follow up with him multiple times? Update 1. Wow. Thank you to everyone who commented and shared their thoughts. I was really surprised by how many responses I got, and I've taken some time to reflect on the situation and read through all your advice. First, I want to clarify a few things. I'm not usually one to call names or get confrontational. I try to communicate calmly and kindly, but I was really caught off guard by my husband's behavior. I understand that we all have moments where we aren't at our best, but I felt like this was a situation that required some immediate action and care, especially since I was in so much pain. A lot of you pointed out that calling him an asshole might not have been the best way to handle the situation. And I agree. Looking back, I probably should have approached him differently. The frustration was building up, and in that moment, I just snapped. I realize now that calling him names didn't help the situation at all. In hindsight, it seems like there was a breakdown in communication between us. I wanted him to take the initiative and show care, but he didn't, and instead of asking him for help in a calm way, I ended up insulting him. That wasn't fair to him, especially because he likely didn't realize how much I was hurting emotionally as well as physically. A lot of people also pointed out that the issue might not be about me asking for help, but more about how we both handle stress and crisis situations. I do have a tendency to expect others to read my mind, and I think I expected my husband to just know what needed to be done. However, it's clear now that I need to communicate more clearly and give him more specific instructions, especially when it comes to things like this. I can't just assume he'll know what to do or that he'll naturally prioritize my needs without me being explicit. One thing I learned from your comments is that this situation might be an opportunity for us to have a serious talk about our expectations and how we can better support each other in tough situations. I'm not trying to attack him, but I do want him to be more aware of how I'm feeling when something major happens. He is usually very supportive, but this particular moment was one where I really needed him to step up, and I felt like he didn't. I've decided to talk to him about everything calmly. I plan to apologize for calling him names, and I also want to explain why I was so hurt by his actions, or lack thereof. I hope this can be a learning experience for both of us. I'll update again after I've had the conversation with him. Thanks again for all the advice and kind words. Update 2. Hey everyone, thanks so much for your patience in waiting for an update. After reading all your comments and taking some time to cool down, I finally sat down with my husband and had a long conversation about the situation. I started by apologizing for calling him an asshole. I told him that I know it wasn't the best way to handle things, and that I regretted letting my frustration take over. I explained that I wasn't angry at him as a person, but that I was in so much pain, physically and emotionally, that I didn't know how to communicate properly. I let him know that I felt abandoned and hurt by the fact that he didn't take action when I needed help. He seemed genuinely surprised by how upset I was, and he admitted that he didn't fully realize how much pain I was in. He told me that when I was asking about the painkillers, he felt overwhelmed and didn't know how to respond. He said that he had a hard time processing everything at once, especially with all the stress of the situation. We talked a lot about how we both handle stress in crisis situations, and it became clear that we have different ways of dealing with things. I tend to expect others to just step in and take charge when something goes wrong, while he sometimes freezes up and doesn't know where to start. This is something we definitely need to work on together moving forward. We both agreed that communication needs to improve and that we need to have clearer expectations for each other in times of stress. I told him that I would be more specific about what I need in the future, and he promised to try to be more proactive when it comes to helping me in situations like this. After we had our talk, we were both able to get on the same page, and I felt a lot better. I'm still in pain, and it's going to take time for me to heal, but I'm glad that we're making progress in how we communicate and support each other. Thanks again to everyone who commented. I really appreciate all the advice and understanding. Update 3. It's been a few weeks now, and I wanted to update everyone on how things have been going. I'm still recovering from the injury, and while the pain isn't as bad as it was initially, I'm taking things slow. As for my relationship with my husband, things have improved significantly since the conversation we had. We've both been putting in more effort to communicate openly about our needs, and I've noticed that he's been more proactive in helping me with things. He's been much more attentive, and I can tell that he's trying harder to make sure I'm comfortable and supported during my recovery. It's not perfect, but we're working on it. We've also agreed that if something major happens again in the future, we'll have a clearer plan for how to handle it and support each other better. I'm really glad we were able to talk things through and get to a better place. Thanks again to everyone who offered advice and support. You've all helped me more than you know.